Welcome to the Goodyear City Council meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the City Council. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. Please drop your completed card in the tray next to the blank speaker cards. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to the city employee at the back of the room. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to let council know your opinion without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The city clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook, YouTube, X, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
I'd like to call the regular meeting to order, May 20, 2024. Mark everybody present. I see we're all here. Please join Councilmember Campbell in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. We thank you, Lord, for our many, many blessings, and we ask that you form a hedge of protection against our police and fire and military as they serve this city throughout every day. Bless them and their families and keep them safe. We ask these things in thy name. Amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. The first item on the agenda is the appointments and reappointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the appointments and reappointments? I see a motion and a second up on the board. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead and open the voting, if you would, please. Thank you. Passes 7-0. Now, with the city clerk, would you please call on those attendees forward and administer the oath?
So please come forward if I call your name. Jerry Drake. I think Carol Palmer is going to come next time. Marlon Booth. Kent Hedges. Teresa Kuleff. John Cox. Susan Schmelzer. Kathleen Consul. I think she's coming next time as well. Do I have them? Perfect. Thank you. Great. Thank you. All right. I have to get close. So raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of Commissioner according to the best of my ability. So I do affirm. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Would anybody like to say anything at this time? We all good? Welcome aboard, and thank you for giving of your time and service to the city. Appreciate that. We all do. Thank you. With that, now is the time for citizens who would like to address the city council on any non-agenda items within the jurisdiction of the city of Goodyear. City council, is there any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor. Jeff Redmond.
Before you start, Jeff, the council listen to comments, make any one of the following recommendations: respond to criticism, request that staff investigate and report to the matter, request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. And you got 3 minutes. The red light will let you know when 20 seconds are left. Before you begin, just your name and whether you're a Goodyear resident. You don't have to give an address.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, good evening to you and to the council and everybody in the room. Jeff Redmond. I live in Australia. It's taken me 2 years to not call it Australia. I've been reminded that by everybody I know that knows how to speak proper English. My topics are basically in relation to the general plan. Should it be approved? I believe it's up for vote right now, right?
Yes.
And I'll come back to some subsequent meetings once we dive into it. Again, if it gets approved and we dive into the expansion. A few things that come to mind living up in Australia is, let me back up. It should be of no surprise if you're driving around through Bullard and through the airport that they're building a commercial base there with the warehouses, which if you put 2 and 2 together means that airport's going to be used a lot more in the upcoming years. I'd ask that there always be a consideration of the flight patterns and the height of those flight patterns. I'm already seeing some flight patterns come over where I live that aren't customary, big planes flying pretty low. So if that volume continues, I just ask that there be some deep dive into the flight patterns on where they come in from and how low they can come in from, because that could really get obsessive. The second would be the road work. I know there's a lot of road work coming up, right? We're going to be in a construction zone for the next 10 years. Let's just be real. There should be consideration to having this road work done at night, wherever possible. I know in most of the cities I've lived in, road work's done at night. They close shop. Everybody can get to work in the morning and go about their day, for the most part. And I know that can't happen everywhere, but road work at night should be the first order of when you're looking at these road expansions. It should be the first thing they consider doing. When it comes to all the road work, so that the folks that are living here in the next 10 years can get about their day. And the third item, I'll just keep this brief. As the plots of land go into the proposed land use world, right? I've already seen some signs come up. I'd ask that there be an expansion of the communication of the proposed land use to the adjacent communities. And what I mean by that, if they're going to build a warehouse or a plaza or something new adjacent to communities, it shouldn't be just the people that live 500 feet away that get the notification. It should be those adjacent communities. About a year ago, I was part of a situation where there was a storage unit going to be approved. I'm in clear visual sight of this storage unit, so are about 5,000 to 6,000 other people, right? But because we weren't 500 feet away, we didn't get the notification. And it just, through hap chance and through Facebook posts, I even found out about the situation, found out about the proposed land use. So I'll come to a planning and zoning meeting and present this to them, but I would appreciate consideration for expanded communication to the adjacent communities where anything goes up. It'd be, for me to live 505 feet away and not be notified of something coming up in my backyard or in my community, I don't think is right. So if that makes sense, I hope it does. I'll bring it up with planning and zoning because I believe they're the ones that make that determination. Am I
Well,
correct in
eventually it
that?
comes to us for an ordinance change, but
It
no,
does.
I appreciate everything that you're getting, and I'm assuming the city manager has got some of those suggestions down.
Yeah.
And they've got your name and address, correct? So,
Actually, the card only has the name. I don't have
I'll
contact
fill it in with some
information.
more
Okay.
detail. I appreciate your time.
no, thank you. Thank you
right.
for coming up.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, sir. William Miller?
Hello, William.
Hello.
For the record, are you a resident of the city of Goodyear?
Yes, I am.
Okay, have it at it, William.
Well, it's good to see you all again. I'm sorry I've been away for a while. I've been playing lots of sports and stuff, but I want to thank you for all of your hard work. There's no complaints today, but I want to thank you because I've seen you guys made some changes. There's a traffic light up in Australia Parkway, and my grandma feels a lot safer. She's very happy, and now I'm happy that she's safer now. So I want to thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it. Thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you, William, and I appreciate that light as well, because I'm in that area a lot, and sure makes it a lot easier crossing that street with that light. I know which light you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anything else?
No, that's it, Mayor.
Okay. Will the city clerk please read the consent agenda items 2 through 11 by title only?
Number 2, approval of minutes. Number 3, approval of a new Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Spitz Mediterranean Street Food located at 2015 North Globe Drive, Suite 114. Number 4, adopt resolution number 2024-2405, authorizing the submission of 3 applications for state shared revenue grant program requesting education, public safety, and cultural and environmental development and protection and funds from the Tohono O'odham Nation, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents relating to said applications, and authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement if grant funds are awarded, and authorizing the city manager to approve the required budget transfer if grant funds are awarded. Number 5, approve and authorize the mayor to execute the temporary access easement for construction, maintenance, and operation of storm drain outlet. Number 6, approve the memorandum of understanding with Arizona Department of Administration 911 program for geospatial support services for Next Generation 911. Number 7, adopt the Goodyear Library Master Plan. Number 8, authorize the budget amendment of $4,500,000 and contract for the expenditure of construction funds up to $10,883,703 for capital improvement program CIP project number 42027, Estrella Parkway, Pebble Creek Parkway, and I-10 interchange. Number 9, adopt the fiscal year 2025 financial policies. Number 10, adopt resolution number 2024-2380, designating the chief fiscal officer for officially submitting the fiscal year 2025 expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General. Number 11, adopt ordinance number 2024-1608, amending Article 8-7, business registration permits, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for penalties, and an effective date.
Thank you. Does anybody want to pull an item from the agenda? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 8 for a presentation.
You want a presentation on 8? Okay. Vice Mayor?
To pull item 11 for discussion.
11 for discussion, we pulled for a separate vote. Yes?
I second that.
11, okay. And Councilmember Campbell?
I was doing the same.
All right, so then if we would, can I get a motion and a second for 2, consent 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. We're going to do that separately. Yeah, 11's pulled. That's pulled. Can I get that motion and a second for those? I got a motion and a second. Okay, with that, can you go ahead and open the voting? Passes 7-0. Now, we'll try 8th first. You say you want a presentation? Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Cinto, City Engineer. I also have with me tonight Logan Hopp, our Senior Project Manager for our CIP project to improve Estrella Parkway, Pebble Creek under the I-10 interchange. So just some quick background on the project, or the scope of the project. If you look at the graphic, all the area in red are where we're improving. So essentially, we're taking it from what it is today to 3 lanes in each direction under the freeway, and we're adding a dual left in both directions to enter I-10, and we're adding a dedicated right turn in both directions also. So just a quick update on the project, the schedule. Should council move forward with the request tonight, we would start construction next month in June of '24, and the completion date is planned December '25. The current budget for the project is $7.9 million. The request tonight is to add an additional $4.5 million for a total project budget of $12.4 million. And essentially what's transpired is we went out to bid for the construction of the project, and we had 2 bids. The low bidder came back at $10.8 million, and the additional project costs for design, permitting, and whatnot are about $1.6 million, so that totals that $12.4 million of the project. There's been no changes to the scope of the project. What I described earlier is how it started, and that's what we plan to move forward with. The primary impact to the budget is due to escalation in cost of construction, which we're seeing across the board on these types of projects. There is a secondary impact, not quite as impactful as the escalation in construction cost, but in order to keep the project on schedule, work around the traffic moratoriums and the construction restrictions, the contractor will need to do some night work and some increased traffic control, both which do impact the project budget to some degree, but it strikes a good balance between being able to keep part of the interchange open so that way we can move traffic north and south while we're doing the construction, and also meeting the timeliness of the construction schedule, because we know this project, the sooner we get it done, the sooner everybody benefits from it. So with that, again, we're asking for approval for the contract and for the budget transfer, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up for discussion. I got Councilmember Campbell has number 1.
I've got a couple of questions, Steve. You said there were 2 bids. What was the other bid?
The other bid was about 300,000 more, so I think it was 11.1 or 11.2 million.
And did you know why it was only 300,000 more? Was it the cost of the
I don't have the specific details, but they were very close considering.
Okay, and have we done business with this company before?
With the low bidder, yes, we have.
Okay, and my next question is that whenever you're doing the construction, are you going to at any time close the turn lanes going onto the I-10? So you're not shutting us down, because if we don't go there, we have to go to Litchfield.
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, the plan is we would only close any of that for the overnight work, whenever there's an overnight work scheduled. For the rest of the time, the plan would be to keep at least one side of the interchange open, and that would include the on and off movements for the entire interchange.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, I just want to verify, this is the project where we're going to extend it to 3 lanes underneath the freeway? We're going to
Yes.
move the wall out and an extra lane on both ends there?
Correct.
Which will make it a full capacity, which it's supposed to be now, kind of bottlenecks right there, so.
Correct.
Okay, no, that'll be great when it's done. And then I appreciate the night work, trying to mitigate the traffic. And is there any moratoriums on any work being done under Saraville or Bullard during that time? Because I want to make sure that at least people have a way to go north and south under the freeway. And I'd rather not have lots of traffic on those other 2, or at least construction going on during those times, during that, if we can.
That's a great question, and I'm not aware of any moratorium specifically for those areas, but we will coordinate with Development Services and our other capital projects to ensure that there is north-south routes that we can move volume on while it's under construction.
Because I can see that being very, very frustrating for residents, because it feels like recently it's been every road you go down, there's some kind of bottleneck. So if we can try to limit or not have any traffic, any construction going on at that point under the freeways during at least those two closest to Estrella would be great. So just to try to limit those headaches for drivers, and to Councilwoman Campbell's point, just making sure anybody driving has to get to work in the morning can still get to work in Phoenix or out in Buckeye, or whichever direction they're going. So the most easy as possible. So just notifications and things like that. So notice is definitely needed, and I appreciate you bringing it to us, and we were expecting this, so thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, this is not quite, but almost a 50% increase in the cost of the project. Can you talk about what the other valley cities are experiencing with the increase in construction costs that brings the shock of this project to a little bit less of a degree for those of us that have been following it?
Mayor, Councilmember Stipp, yes, I'm aware of at least several other agencies that are regularly seeing 35 to 45% increases in construction costs over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, ADOT puts out some information on their website, and they're seeing about 55% increase over the last, since 2021, basically, in all of their construction costs. This is not apples to apples exactly with ADOT, but it's similar in the sense as it's roadway improvements near an interchange. So this is happening in our experience across the board in the valley.
So I don't want to answer my own question, but I'm going to. City of Scottsdale, for example, most of their CIP projects have seen almost a 50 to 60% increase in their capital costs. So they have had to completely and significantly redefine what they're able to do. They had bond projects that were dramatically affected by this. So the construction increase is, I'm going to say it's not shocking in that regard. I think what I'm concerned about it twofold. Number one is, how is this going to affect the CIP that we are going to vote on tonight? And have we taken these kinds of experience now locally? Have we taken that into consideration in this CIP project list going forward? That perhaps when we got into this pinch a number of years ago, that we were underbidding. The scope was right. Our cost estimates were way off. We made some adjustments. We got back on track. I think we thought we all were there, and then we've now experienced this. So I think going forward with those future CIP projects, it's really going to be incumbent upon both engineering and the budget staff, and I'm looking at Ryan sitting over your shoulder, to make sure that we've got these numbers right. So that question will come up again, Ryan, so now you got a little heads up. The other part of that is kind of procedurally, this was on the consent agenda, and you don't make the agenda, so this isn't necessarily a comment directed at you, but when we have an increase of almost 50% on a project, I don't think we should just be hand-waving this on a consent. We probably need to shed some transparency on it, which is the reason that I asked that this project be pulled, just so that we can inform the public of what is happening, and that we, because if you just read this report, you're like, well, they just hand-waved $4.5 million. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. And I think we all know it, and we want this project done so badly. And I think anybody who drives on Estrella Parkway / Pebble Creek Parkway would agree 1,000% that this is probably the one project that we absolutely have to get done. So it's not a matter of not doing it, it's just a matter of shedding the right light on it, so that the public knows that we're actually paying attention up here, and that we understand what's happening. So I appreciate the extra time you took to put the information together and get this presentation put forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Any chance that ADOT or MAG can throw some money at this?
Mayor, appreciate the question. The improvements here are primarily for the city. It's for the volume to be able to move within the city and then onto the freeway. So this is currently planned to be fully funded by the city.
And I had to give it a shot. But anyway, all right.
Do you want to shed light on it?
Yeah,
Yep.
go ahead.
I think it's important, as the Transportation Policy Committee member for the city, I think it's really important for the public and the rest of the council to kind of be reminded and for the public to be aware. Back in the early 2000s, the city of Goodyear gave up its ability to access arterial roadway improvements through the MAG funding process in order to expand Interstate 10 through the city. That was
It's before any of us.
I hesitate to use the word gentleman's agreement because I don't believe anybody involved in that is meeting that definition. However, it was the agreement that was reached in order for us to be advanced the money for I-10 to be widened from the 2 lanes that it was to the 5 lanes that it is. In doing so, we gave up our money, our access to arterial money through the remaining life of Proposition 400, which is expiring in the next year or two. This year in the fall, voters are going to be asked to vote on Proposition 479, which is the extension of that. In Proposition 479, the city of Goodyear is back in the game for arterial roadways. But I think it's really important for everybody to understand that we are not getting MAG money, and we are not, and you may read about it in, why did Surprise get it? Why is Scottsdale getting it? We gave it up in order to get something else. So I think this was a great opportunity to talk about that, and quite frankly, the importance of Proposition 479, as we'll see in November.
I appreciate that, and that we is long before we got here, but yes. All right, with that, I see a motion and a second up on the board. Can we open for a vote? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Now, let's see, for number 11, adopt ordinance number, do I have to go through with the motion in a second, or for 11 all over, right?
The presentation first.
You had the presentation? All right, cool. Who's going to do 11? Come on down.
Good evening, Rick Massey, City Attorney. This is the item that we discussed at last week's work session and was previously presented to the council. It's the amendment to Article 8.7 of the City Code, converting our business registration program to a business license program. As we discussed at the work session last week, we added additional exemptions dealing with home-based businesses and casual sales, to address some of those concerns that have been raised by council the previous time this item was presented to council. And based upon the feedback we received at last week's work session, we are presenting this item this evening, but I can certainly answer any further questions council may have regarding the program.
Okay, before we get started, motion, right? Going to get a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-1608, amending Article 8-7, business registration permits, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for penalties, and effective date. With that, I see a motion and a second, and the first one up is Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a very robust discussion on this last week, and I fully support the business licensing. I understand why we're doing. I think it's a necessary thing that we're doing. One of the aspects of it is there is now an enforcement arm that hadn't been before with business registration. And part of what you're challenged to do is to define what a casual business is, to differentiate it from another somebody who's fully in business. And the sum of $5,000 a year has been designated as one of the things that define it. That has concerned me because then it implies that maybe a resident would have to provide some financial information, or there would be some level of enforcement. Again, now that the new ordinance does have an enforcement arm with penalties and things like that. And so my inquiry, and we had a discussion today, is it possible to define what a casual business is without actually putting a dollar amount in?
Mayor, members of council, the answer to that is yes. I think we're trying to provide some definition to these casual sales events that are larger in scale than what we're interpreting these small sales events. Another way to do it that we've seen with other cities, and it's contained in our definition is just how many sales events days do they have. We have 2. If you want to choose a different number, that if you're engaging in business in the city of Goodyear more than 5 days, 10 days, 7 days, to fall under that casual sales exception, that's another way to do it. We have the 2 in there plus the 5,000 to make that determination whether you're a casual business or not. If you wanted to view it just as how many days you're engaged in business in the city, perfectly acceptable way of altering that definition.
I think that does bear consideration. I'm always concerned about the law of unintended consequences and how I know we're very well-meaning as we are looking to implement this, but sometime in the future, don't know if that would actually be used as an enforcement for that $5,000. And so it'd be my preference to strike the dollar amount and find another definition.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Hampton.
Yeah, thank you, Rourke. And I know that we had a good conversation last time. I couldn't see it in here. Did we come to a solution on uploading or coming into or for business certifications, or what's the term? I'm looking for?
Proof of business license?
Proof of business, how they're able to operate as a business.
I believe we settled that was going to be an administrative determination, but that there would need to be proof provided to the city. And I believe finance will be making that determination as they roll out the program. I think we settled on uploading proof, but I'll look to
Okay.
Jared.
I just want to verify.
Yes.
I didn't see it in this.
It's not
this
in the
section.
ordinance, it's more in the administration of the ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Hampton. So with the language that we have in there, that they have to have proof of a license, rather than saying specifically that they have to bring it in or provide it online, that'll allow us to use whatever the most efficient method is. So if they have a license that we can find online, we will use that method. And if for some reason they have to either give us a copy or bring a copy in, then that's what we would have to rely on. But we will use online methods to the extent possible.
Okay. And then, does that also give the solution for military spouses we were talking about that they got licensed in New York and now they're in Arizona, and the state of Arizona allows them to use their New York license for business here in Arizona? So I just want to make sure that's covered for traveling, specifically for military spouses.
The ordinance doesn't specify that it has to be an Arizona business license, or so.
Okay.
In my view, it'd be acceptable if they're licensed to conduct business.
We can still look it up. So I was taking that into account. I know that was a good question as well. And then I think that was the 2 things I had questions. Just I couldn't see it in the ordinance specifically, so I just wanted to make sure that those 2 were addressed. And then, yeah, I'm okay with Councilmember Kano's, or Vice Mayor Kano's suggestion as well. So, thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. Rourke, was this done to get a handle on the group homes and the sober living homes in our city? Is this what predicated us doing this business license?
Mr. Mayor, or Mayor, members of council, it was identified that we didn't have a business license as we were looking at the sober living home issue, and that a number of our neighbors were regulating the sober living homes in some way to the level that cities are able to regulate sober living homes through their business license or their home-based business programs. So we did not have that tool in our toolbox. And so this was identified as a way to, as well as regulating business throughout the city, could also touch that industry.
Well, I'm sorry I was not at the meeting Monday, and I would have said what I'm going to say now, but I had surgery and was not able to be here. I don't feel that this is going to take care of our problem, and I think we're going to have to take another look at it. I met last week with one of the officers who does the homes and was told once again it's from 2019 they've had this issue. And I want the assurance of our city manager, all of our deputy city managers, our acting police chief, our fire chief, development services, and code compliance, that when you are notified of an issue by police or fire, It rises to our city manager, who is reportable to us, and she needs to let us know, because we were not told. We couldn't fix the problem because we didn't know there was a problem. And I just hate it, because I've been on this council since 2011, and I've not missed very many meetings, and I never heard about any of this until it all blew up in the newspaper, and then everybody was all over it. And I've looked at the Glendale ordinance, I've looked at the Gilbert ordinance, I've looked at the Surprise ordinance, and I am telling you that we don't have enough in ours to do what they're doing. And I think we need, if we're not consistent with how they're spelling out how to get these licenses and what they have to do, they're just gonna ship their people to us. Because, or they're not gonna ship our people, I'm sorry, the proprietors are gonna come here and open a business because we're easy. And I'm not gonna be Casper Milquetoast on this, because this is way too long and way out of control. But we need to really think this out, and I don't know how we can put in the ordinance. I don't know if we have to have a separate ordinance for group homes or for the sober living homes, because there are good sober living homes, and there are good group homes that do operate in the law. And then there's the ones that aren't, that are in there only for the money. But if they're going to expel a resident, I don't want them dumping that resident in the streets of Goodyear as a homeless person. They've got to provide some place for that resident to go. And I'm just not sure we do enough in here. And I'm just reserving the right that we're gonna have another conversation on this, because this is not gonna do it, although it's a start. But we really can't let any of the homes that are required to have a state license to come in here without the license. If they can't provide the license and get the license first from the state of Arizona, they don't deserve to come in Goodyear and open up.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is not a sober living home ordinance. It's an ordinance of general applicability. There are components that will touch upon these sober living homes, but one of the issues you identified that whether they're unlicensed, under our ordinance, you will need to have a valid license for the business that you're intending to conduct in order to receive a Goodyear license. If you're operating without that underlying license, we can revoke our license or take further enforcement action.
Can you remove them from the city? Do we have the power to do that?
We can prosecute them under the ordinance for operating without a City of Goodyear business license, with each day being a new and separate offense.
Penalty. And what's
Yes.
the penalty, 1,000 a day?
The second and subsequent offense are up to 1,000 a day.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Sorry, this topic is, well, first of all, we are only talking about business licenses. We're not talking about regulating sober living homes. So that whole conversation needs to kind of stop. I think it needs to stop on this topic right here. The rest of the sober living conversation must continue. I do not disagree with that at all. But on this particular subject, we are talking about the business licenses. So getting back to the Vice Mayor's point, I absolutely agree that we should not have a dollar threshold in there. I do not want us, for the whole reason that we didn't want to bring somebody in, have them come in person. I do not want someone having to come in to verify whether they made $4,999 or $5,001. That should not be what we're doing. So if there's a way for us tonight to amend the ordinance as presented, I would love that language so that we can do that to address the concern about the $5,000. I think we have two issues here. Number one is we have the situation where we have no business licenses. That's issue one, and that's what this ordinance is addressing. Issue two is the sober living component is a real problem, and it is a real problem that we need to find a solution to. And I don't think the seven of us are the solution to this. I think we need to direct the staff to come up with a viable solution to the sober living home situation and bring that to us. There are 7 varying opinions on how this needs to be done, and there are only, as far as I know, 2 experts in this community that understand that, and they both reside in the police department. They are not sitting at this dais, and they are probably not sitting in this audience. So can we please address that issue sole and separate from this at a future date? And I'm looking at you, but I should be looking at the city manager, and I'm just rambling on at this point. I'm appreciative of the changes that we made from the very first time that we saw this. I think getting the $5,000 thing situated gets us through at least getting this, because without this ordinance, anything else we do on the sober living situation is pointless. So we've got to have this first, and then we can address step two. Do you have what that draft language should be? Does somebody have it of how we should do that on this?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Stepp, I think if you want to address the 5,000 threshold, what it sounds like council may be inclined to do, I think you just make a motion to amend to strike the $5,000 threshold in conjunction with the casual sales. But that's going to leave you with a threshold of 2 event days. So I would probably recommend you change that because otherwise I think you're going to probably capture more than you're intending to capture. I don't know what you consider to be a casual sale. I would recommend 10 days perhaps, because if you're in business longer than 10 days regularly, then maybe you're falling more into that ongoing business capacity. So my recommendation is probably somewhere in the lines of changing that 2 to 10 and then deleting the 5,000.
And those are called casual event?
That's in the definition of casual activity or sale. But if you make that statement, I can certainly fix that with the drafting with the city clerk.
Okay. And now that I don't see it up, we do have a motion and a second on this, correct?
Well, yes, but we can amend that once we still get some more comments coming.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to get our ducks in a row before we get.
And I think he's got something good there, Councilmember Stipp. I think if everybody can agree with 10, say that'd be the number, and how he just recommended it, we can probably move forward with it.
I'm going to suggest 14, to be quite frank. Just to keep the math simple, but.
How does 14 make the math simple?
Just, it's 2 weeks. Yeah. It's not.
Don't help him out there.
It's not 5 business days times 2, it's
Okay.
14 days.
Okay.
But in any event, I think we have to remember where we're headed with that, and any discussion about what the cause and what the next step is needs to happen with the next step, and we need to get this one done.
And I got a feeling, but wait till we hear from everybody else that your 14 is probably going to work. But Councilmember Loretano?
Guess what? I agree with Councilmember Stipp on a lot of this. I think that's right on point. I think the Vice Mayor brought up that this was first one of my concerns. Is $5,000, having that in the ordinance. Right now, that may seem like 1 or 2 transactions, but if it doesn't come back and get amended every year, you may be gone in 10 years, we're going to be gone in 10 years. I would hate to see this ordinance and then all of a sudden we start catching people who don't have business licenses who we weren't intended. I don't really know what a casual event is. I would be more happier with 14 because there are so many people that are working from home, are doing stuff on the internet, are doing different types of, kind of the gig economy, that it does kind of lead me to that's a concern. We got bloggers, they make money, but they may not work 14 days. I guess I'm not really sure how casual event. I would be happier with 14 days. I think that is a better way to capture that. The purposes here is to make sure our businesses are basically, we're just changing the registrations to a license so people know. We've had a registration for how many years?
Gosh, it's been
a while.
Yeah, 18, 19 years, I believe.
And many of these businesses should have registered regardless under the current registration.
They should currently have a registration.
So I don't have a problem with the license itself, and I think Councilmember Stipp brings up a very good distinction with regard to this ordinance. This is a general, as you said, a general business license. I have several business licenses where we conduct business in other states and or other cities, and we conduct them regularly there. So I don't have a problem with the actual license portion. The 5,000, if we can work towards that with that gig and those people, that would be great. What is there any criminal penalties? If someone continues to violate, what are the criminal penalties?
There's options to prosecute as a Class 1 misdemeanor, which...
And so the people know, what is that?
That's, the maximum penalty will be a $2,500 fine plus surcharges, which are 80 or 90% on top of that at this point, up to 3 years probation and 6 months in jail for repeated offenders. That's the maximum that can be imposed for a Class 1 misdemeanor.
So if someone's a bad actor and they're continuously doing this, they could end up getting criminal charges.
That's correct.
And I guess one thing we were looking at with the sober living homes is many of those are not the good ones that have the state license. I think we're concerned really about those bad actors that are, as Councilmember Campbell said, popped up everywhere, kind of, from 2019, and they just kind of, it's like whack-a-mole. They go from one city to another city to another city. So I want to make sure we have, for those bad actors, we have a means to, because 250, when those people, there was one next to our office, and they were raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So $250 for them is going to be cost of doing business.
Correct. And again, it's an ordinance of general applicability for all classes of business. Certainly, we have built-in tools for the folks that won't become compliant with the business license requirements.
And just generally, just for the sober living homes or anybody else, because it's applicable, if I basically say, I'm just not going to get a license, or I want to be a bad actor and do something that's not legal, let's say I don't have my state license for something, I want to do something illegal, I'm probably not going to come in and turn in to get a license anyway.
Would assume that's probably correct.
If I'm planning on committing major fraud, I'm probably not going to go down into the city or fill out that. But that does get it, then if we know that this bad actor hasn't done this, just so that people know, and I'll make sure I'm explaining that right, if this bad actor operates a business and they have basically said, because they know what they're doing is wrong, so they're not going to go do it, that gives our city code and our officers another tool to shut down whatever that bad actor is doing.
That's the intent, yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, that's all I got.
Councilmember Gillis?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to agree with Bill and Laura and Sherry on what you're talking about. I think it's a very good idea. Get it taken care of tonight. I get that. And then I'm going to say what I've been saying 5 times over and over and over at the last meeting, at this meeting, with anybody that'll listen. I'm sure people are getting sick of it. I'm going to say it again. The license was brought forward, Rory. You know this because I brought it forward, and it was mainly because of the sober living homes. It was a way to deal with the sober living homes and the bad actors and the fraudulent behavior going on in our city that we were worried about, correct? That's what we talked about in the beginning.
The idea was developed in those conversations.
Yes, exactly. So in answer to Wally's question, that is what was brought forward. Okay, as far as police and fire, it is not 2 people on the police force. It is Ashley on the fire department. And Paul, I don't know what her last name is. What is her last name? Ashley. Sorry. But I want to give credit where credit's due because they've been working on this for 5 years.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's Ashley Troyer.
Troyer?
Troyer. Yes.
Yeah, Ashley Troyer from the fire department and Scott Daniels from the police department have been working on this for 5 years, which was why I say, and one of the questions I think we need to let Wally know because she's not aware, is that, they've been trying to let us know, and we should have them at these meetings, and we have not had them at a few of these meetings, which is what I asked at the last meeting. Why are they not here? They're the ones that are really up on what's going on more than we are. We're kind of hearing everything third and fourth, whatever. So I'm in agreement with Wally that we need to talk further about this, and we need to have Ashley and Scott here so they can add to the conversations. Why we're trying to take all this information from them, I do not understand. And I see where Wally is wondering what's going on because of that. And so because we're just kind of piecing it together. Because there is a panel that does work on this, and Laura sits on it, and I sit on it, and I've been working with Scott at great lengths about this since I've been working with the homeless and drug situation here in Goodyear. And my big deal was I did not want these people from the bad actors, as you say, sober living homes ending up on the streets as far as homeless. That's what we were worried about. So that's why all this took place. That's why we brought the license to everybody's attention. And Ashley and Scott, one from fire, one from police, again, are the ones that have been doing this. So I agree with Wally. I think we need to talk about this further. I said it at the last meeting, but Wally wasn't there. And I think that we need to bring them in and talk about it and quit trying to second guess everything. And let's just really put it out there on what we're really talking about here. Because this is an important conversation. I realize everybody wants to just table it and kick the can down the road, but this is an important conversation for our community, since there is fraudulent behavior going on out there.
All right, I'll figure out here, just a couple of things I want to add. I think part of the issue is not just us. I think the state's going to get involved, because if they get our license and they're abusing the people in there, you got to have laws to be addressing that, okay? So I think, you're going to have to look partially at changing some of the laws, some of the penalties, some of the state agencies that are overseeing this, and what they can do for those people that are abusing the people in there. Because what if they come in and they're regularly abusing the people that got fraud? That's where the Attorney General, I know, has been prosecuting some of these, because she shared that with us at one of the meetings we had down at the league, is what do you do with them, okay? Because there's nothing to say that once they have the license, what's our authority, right? So, I mean, I agree, it's going to have to be further, but I also think the state is going to have to step up to the plate as well on some of this. Now, with that, Bill, how do we do this? We've already got a motion on the table. Bill will go ahead and add one to supplement that?
Just offer an amendment.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I would like to, if we can, change the motion to strike the $5,000 limit and increase the casual event activity from 2 days to 14 days.
Second.
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
So the second person seconded, agreed with that.
Okay,
So that is the motion that's on the
so
floor.
we got a motion and a second. Can you open up for vote? Passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, let's see where we're at right now. We've got a public hearing on the agenda tonight. Public hearing is to consider a rezoning of a portion of Lot 16 and 17 in Airport Commerce. Open the public hearing. Please introduce yourself to the public.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ann Dolmage, Principal Planner, and this is a request from Joseph Osborne for a rezone of a property in the city of Goodyear. And the property in question is located in central Goodyear, near the intersection of Bullard Avenue and El Sol. It's currently vacant and undeveloped, and it's approximately 5.6 acres in size. Major thoroughfares include MC 85 to the north, and future State Route 30 will be about 0.6 miles to the south. And here we have a zoomed-in view of the site. The current zoning, which we'll learn a little bit more about in a minute here, is planned area development. It's in the Airport Commerce Center, PAD, with underlying I-1 or light industrial zoning. And there's a number of industrial uses on adjacent parcels. We have the Phoenix Goodyear Airport to the north, Utz Foods also to the north. A new Lux Locker RV storage facility has entitlements to develop to the east. The Microsoft Data Center is to the southeast. And Estrella Commerce Park, which is a different PAD, is to the west. And just a little bit of history on the current zoning of the site and of the Commerce Center. The Airport Commerce Center PAD was originally approved in 1985, and it contained 430 acres with a mixture of industrial and commercial uses. In 2018, about 279 acres in the middle of the pad were rezoned to I-1, light industrial, with a PAD overlay to make room for a Microsoft Data Center. And you can see that, let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, the figure on the left did not appear as it was supposed to, but you can see it in the figure on the right. The purple area on the right side of the figure is the new I-1 with PAD overlay area for Microsoft Data Center. The property we're considering a rezone for tonight is the property with a star on it. There we go. And you can see the Microsoft site and the figure on the left now, that large purple area in the middle. It did split the Airport Commerce Center PAD into two pieces. A piece on the west, which is where the subject site is located, and then there's a piece up at the northeast corner. Today's request will rezone the subject property to I-2 with a PAD overlay. Two things to note here. The general plan designation is industrial, which is appropriate for both I-1 and I-2 zoning. Also, Lux Locker, the yellow parcel to the direct east of the site, has entitlements to, Lux Locker still maintains their Airport Commerce Center PAD zoning, and that site does allow general industrial uses, I-2 uses. So this rezone will not be creating an island of I-2 zoning. This rezone will facilitate the development of a truck parking and logistics facility on the subject property. That use is allowed under I-2 zoning. The overlay will allow most other I-2 uses as well on the site, but will restrict some uses that may cause severe impacts to the neighborhood in terms of noise, fumes, odor, traffic. Additionally, it'll establish modified setbacks for the site. The front setback, instead of 50 feet, will be 25 feet. Side setbacks, instead of 30 feet, will be 20 feet. And the I-2 rear setback of 50 feet will be maintained. Staff has evaluated the impact of this proposal to the greater community and identified no major concerns. Planning and Zoning Commission voted on May 8th to recommend approval, 5-0. Additionally, all required notifications, such as the legal ad, sign posting, and postcard notifications, have been completed per our legal requirements. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the proposed rezone from PAD with underlying I-1 zoning to I-2 with a PAD overlay. And I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also here too.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak at this time? Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. City Clerk, please read ordinance number 2024-1610 by title only.
Adopt ordinance number 2024-1610, conditionally rezoning approximately 5.6 acres of property located east of the southeast corner of El Sol and Bullard Avenue from planned area development pad with underlying light industrial I-1 zoning to general industrial park, I-2 with the pad overlay, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, from directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Thank you. City Council, please enter a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 2024-1610. I see a motion and I see a second. Open for discussion. It looks like Councilmember Stipp's up first.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated the frame of reference to what was around it, which I think is illustrative of this probably being the best location for this type of use, probably anywhere in the city. And I am, I don't want to say grateful, but I'm appreciative of the property owner recognizing the serious problem that we have in this region about where I'm a truck driver and I need to park my truck. We have two types of parking. One is I'm going to park it and I'm going to go home and see my family. And the other is I have reached my time limit and I need to park it so I can sleep and then I can continue on my way. Both of those are equally important, and I know that there is a regional effort to try to solve the I've reached my time, I need a place to park. For anybody who has driven along Camelback east of El Mirage Road, which is in a county island, that has turned into a gigantic truck parking area. Trucks parked on both sides of the road. It doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, it doesn't even though there's no direct quote-unquote neighbors to that area, as a community, that doesn't feel good. And I would hate for our residential roadways and some of our other areas, and I think we've seen it in a vacant retail spot that is now under construction. We saw it for the last year and a half, that turned into a giant truck parking area. Not designated for it, not the right place for it, not... and we cannot penalize the trucking industry nor the truck driver for needing a place to stop and rest. And I think this provides that as an opportunity for them to go designated place. It's safe for them, it's safe for the community. So there's a lot of wins behind this, this whole process for us. And we get to participate in some of the solution regionally to what's going to happen. So I think this is actually a really good project for us, particularly in that area. You made the comment that the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0. I have heard that number mentioned a number of times when we talk about Planning and Zoning Commission votes. So I would generically ask the manager, can we have a follow-up on why we are at 5-0 instead of 7-0 on planning and zoning? This is not the first time we've had this discussion. And I know we had a couple people step off and a couple people step on. I don't need an answer to it right now. I think a follow-up is fine, but I'd like to know when council appointed positions are not being fulfilled as they should be, especially something as important as planning and zoning, which needs 7 members of the community and not just 5. But thank you for the presentation.
Vice Mayor.
Well, after reading the council action report and watching the planning and zoning, it wasn't clear to me what the intended use of this property was. Was it a company going to park their own trucks, or essentially a business where there was a facility for hire? In the information provided, it's defined as a truck terminal and logistics site or a truck parking facility. Can you better define what the vision is for this project or property?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor Kano. I will let the applicant speak more to that. From what they've told me, it is a trucking facility for a specific company, D&D Trucking Facility for their own trucks. And I'll let them come speak more about the operations of the site.
Okay.
Would you like to? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Arpan Taylor. I'm an engineer and project manager for this project. Owners couldn't be here, so I'm representing them. I did speak with the owner, since Ann asked me the same questions on the way here. So I did speak with the owner group, and they said that they're planning to have their D&D trucking, their own trucks parked there at this point. So that's what they told me.
Okay.
So I said I'll relay to the council.
Okay. I think that helps to clarify what the function is, so
Yes.
I appreciate that information.
Yes, they are a growing company, and they operate throughout the country with their trucks.
Okay.
So as they grew, they bought the land, and that's what they intend to do.
So is there any intent to make this into a truck stop?
There was another question I asked them, and they mentioned that they would, that the driver would park, and they are not intending to sleep there in the truck. That's what I was told.
Okay.
So that's the intention at this point.
Okay,
So
but it's their company trucks?
it's their
That's
company
the plan.
trucks. That's what they're planning on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. You said they do intend to sleep there?
No,
They don't
They do not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
what
it
they
is
told
one
me.
company, so it's not a regional stop, anybody can go
No,
there.
it's not. No, it's not like a junction stop type
Yeah.
of thing. You know, where
Okay.
they are planning to operate their own company
Yeah.
trucks, and they're planning people to park and then go. So they're not planning to have someone sleep there and.
So no one's sleeping there,
Hang
so there
out there.
shouldn't be any running diesel trucks all night long necessarily there, because they're not sleeping there.
Yeah, they are not planning to stay there overnight. That's what I was told.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I guess that's why I was curious. I didn't see any stipulations on that. I didn't know if the planning department could talk about that, but.
Okay.
So okay, so no, I don't think there's a stipulation for it. So there's no running diesels, or how many think can fit there? I didn't count all the slots.
I think there is I don't remember exactly, but I think we have 69, right? Okay, we have 69 parking.
69, okay. Okay, I was just curious. I think the neighbor to, if I'm right, if I'm thinking this area is right, is there still a church right next to there? And I know there's some other uses right there too, right?
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Hampton. There is a church to the direct west in that little industrial park. And they'll be responsible, if the question's about parking, they'll have to do their own parking on their site, and the truck facility will have their own parking on their own site as well.
Okay, yeah, just
Yeah.
curiosity questions.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how good, a good fit it would be right there. I mean, I think it
Yeah.
should be a good fit. I'm just curious what a Sunday would feel like, or if a bunch of trucks are running all night long, and what that would
Yeah.
look like, 69 trucks running. But it sounds like they're not gonna be
Yeah.
sitting there running all night and all
Exactly,
day,
yeah.
so
They're not gonna be running, I mean.
they're just getting parked there.
Exactly. It's for
And
the
then, okay, that was my question about the neighborhood. And then I was looking at slide, it was one way in, one way out there for the parking off of, what's that internal road there? El Sol?
Yeah, I can't seem to change the slide, I'm sorry. But yeah, there's one entrance off of El Sol.
Okay. And I don't think, I just don't know what the volume of trucking down there is. There's not a light that we're gonna go there in that corner. There's no lights really down that
No.
road, if I remember right either, so I don't know if there needs to be in the future or not, but just trying to plan for what the neighborhood's gonna feel like. I know it's in between MC85 and the future SR30.
Yeah.
So probably a good spot for trucks to go either route.
That's
but
correct, yes.
I'm just curious what the future plans are, I guess, for Bullard, if there's a CIP project for widening that in the future, or designated truck route type stuff, or,
Yes, Councilmember Hampton, I did talk with our engineer before this meeting, and he confirmed that there are no CIP projects right now for this area in the near future. As individual projects develop, if a signal or other improvements are warranted, it will be handled at that time.
and just something to think about. This is just something in general. I know some routes in the city, for example, Litchfield Park, we're heading south on Litchfield Park, you want to take a right on Van Buren. The traffic that comes there, they're really close to the cars that are trying to take a left-hand turn northbound. So I don't know if this is a spot where they can try to take that into consideration with the turning of large trucks to have enough room to make the turns appropriately there too. That's a future thing, anything really around truck traffic around the city, just to make sure they have enough room to not make it hard for them to get around if they're gonna be there.
Thank you.
And it's just a thing of asphalt, right? It's just
Yes, the truck parking facility, it will be asphalt.
okay. I know this isn't a requirement either, but I know that ASU is doing like a study on the cool asphalt technology. I don't know if this is a spot for that or not, or even want to consider it, but just something to think about, so.
That's a good idea.
So.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't think I have any issues with it, especially knowing that the trucks aren't running 24/7 in there. It'll just be a parking for one particular company. So, I think that's all my curiosity questions, and then my how it's gonna fit in that particular area. So, yeah, no major changes. I just thank you for answering it and understanding the project a little easier. So, thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
So we're all about setting expectations, right? There's nothing that would prohibit this from turning into a commercial spot that they could rent those spaces to anybody else, correct?
Assuming the overarching use doesn't change, no, unless we stipulate it to
Which I'm
prohibit
not-
that.
I'm not interested in doing. I
Yeah,
just want
yeah,
It could
to
be
be perfectly clear that
yeah.
they intend to use it for their folks, but 6 months from now, 6 days from now, or 6 years from now, they go, this is a great commercial opportunity, we're gonna open this up to our partner group or and we're gonna let them park their truck. There's nothing that prohibits that,
No.
which is okay. I mean, it is a truck parking place with 69 parking spots. I mean, so let's not get carried away in the idea that this is only going to be for this one company, always, forever. It is in the middle of an industrial area. Whether those trucks run, parked there, idle, they've got their generator running, and there's a, I don't even want to say another company name, but if there's a Bill's Trucking Company semi-parked there, then, and they've allowed me to do it, they're going to charge me $100 to park there for the night, then I'm going to run my truck. And that's okay. But I just don't want to frame this as, well, this is only this one company and it'll never get used for anything else. I mean, we have to We have to, as the mayor has said, 100 times before, we're in the forever business, and this could be forever a truck parking area, and that's okay. The whole area is designed for it. This is an industrial area, going to be between the railroad and SR 30. It is highly industrial. And like I said, if we're going to have a facility like this, I cannot think of a better place to do it than this particular area.
Vice Mayor?
I appreciate that clarification, Councilmember Stipp. I think that was important to note. So then I guess my question for you, is there anything in stipulations that would prevent this from becoming a truck stop?
Mayor and Vice Mayor Kano, not at this time. Something could be added.
Because I did have a conversation with you and Katie Wilkins today and discovered we really don't have a definition of what a truck stop is. And so I think without some type of stipulation, I would be opposed to this.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I'm confident that it wouldn't be allowed to become a truck stop because we don't permit truck stops. The zoning ordinance is silent. We don't have a definition for them, but we do have a definition for service stations and gas stations, which doesn't include those truck stop facilities. When they come in for their permits, we will get copies of their floor plans. We'll be able to see everything that's taking place inside the building. If it gives you more comfort, there could be a stipulation added, though.
So you're saying in this case, if we make this approval, but later they want to make a truck stop, they would have to come back to you to do that?
Correct.
Okay. As long as there's some checks and balances then. Okay, thank you.
All right. With that, can you open up the voting? Passes 7-0. Thank you. We have you got business. We'd like to remind council, wait for a motion, a second for discussion. We have two items on business. First item is to adopt the tentative budget for the fiscal year 2025 and set a public hearing. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the public.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ryan Biddle, the Finance Manager of Budget and Research here at the City of Goodyear, and I'm here to present our fiscal year 2025 tentative budget. There aren't any predefined stopping points in my presentation, so if you have any questions, just kind of let me know. But as always, there will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. So here's an overview of our presentation this evening. Just a quick recap to remind everybody of how we got to where we are tonight. The budget process officially kicked off back in calendar year 2023 with extensive collaboration between departments, the city manager's office, and the budget team discussing available resources and needs for the upcoming fiscal year. In October, a work session with council, you were presented a 3-year strategic plan from city leadership spanning fiscal year 2025 to 2027. That plan was later adopted in November of 2023. This adopted strategic plan in conjunction with a 5-year general fund forecast, which was presented as part of our January 2024 council retreat. These two items and presentations created the foundation off of which our fiscal year 2025 budget was built. In April, we met again at 2 separate work sessions where we had in-depth discussions on all aspects of the city manager's recommended budget. And all of those steps and hours of discussions lead us to where we're at tonight with our tentative budget presentation. The primary focus of which will be on any changes from the city manager's recommended budget last time we met to where we're at today. So let's get into those changes. If we look at the sources side of the budget, this is where does the money come from, if you've heard me use that phrase in prior conversations. So that change in sources is around $247.6 million, and it is made up of 3 distinct changes, the first of which represents our carryovers. To be more specific, this figure includes both our CIP and non-CIP carryovers, which will be broken out in more detail on the subsequent slides. But for the benefit of the public, carryovers are routine adjustments that are made every single year as part of our tentative budget presentation, and they're related to one-time expenditures. Carryovers do not represent amounts or changes to amounts that council has already approved. All we're doing is changing the timing of when we expect these expenditures to occur between fiscal years. Later in August, the budget team actually goes back, reviews all these carryovers, and then trues them up appropriately to make sure they're hitting in the right place. The second item on our list relates to fund balance and adjustments. These relate to 2 specific CIP projects, the first of which we actually already talked about, and that was the Estrella widening project. So that's $4.5 million of the $6.8 million that you're seeing there. The other one related to Camelback Road. So we talked about in our work session that that project, we're going at it alone. Previously, we had potential of other cities to contribute, but now it's just us. So as we continue through the budget process, we get additional information, and we're able to narrow down the scope of that project and those actual costs. So that's just truing that up. And then the third item on the list here is a Maricopa County property tax correction. It's just a one-time change to our expected property tax collections, and this relates to Maricopa County being found to have incorrectly assessed a particular legal class of property in previous fiscal years. This is not unique just to Goodyear. It impacts all districts, schools, municipalities within Maricopa County. When we look at the expenditure side of things, that is coming in at about $818.1 million, which is a $332 million increase from our city manager's recommended budget. This is the where does the money go side of things, as I commonly refer to it in previous presentations. As was the case on the sources side of things, the majority of our changes relate to the same carryovers that we just talked about. So that's number 1 and number 2 on the list in front of you. Number 3 are base budget adjustments. These are one-time base budget adjustment dollars for vacation and sick payouts, event staffing, and comp time related to the fire department. Items number 4 through 7 are all related from the standpoint they all involve FTEs. So you'll see number 4 and number 5 are both an increase of 2 FTEs to what was presented in our city manager recommended budget, but then those are subsequently offset by the reduction in 2 FTEs, leaving a 0 change to our head count from what was presented at our city manager's recommended budget of 35.43 FTEs. That's the lowest number of FTEs we've added going back to 2019. So specifically, the courtroom specialist and the senior courtroom specialist positions, those are a $0 change to the budget because we already had money in it. It was just sitting on the one-time side of things. All we're doing now is moving it from the one-time side to the ongoing, so it's a $0 impact to the budget itself. The community relations officer and the police lieutenant position, those are being removed, and we plan on revisiting those positions next year when we have a permanent full-time police chief on staff with us. Number 8 relates to a land purchase. So there was a CIP project in fiscal year 25 for $13 million. We've gathered some additional information, and from that information, we believe the cost will be substantially less than that. So because of that, we've reduced that $13 million by $7 million, and that $7 million actually jumps into that bucket of contingency that's sitting there at number 9 on the list in front of you as well. So that whole contingency bucket of $73 million, that is also a change that is made every single year as part of the tentative budget, and that is us basically just increasing our contingency amounts for unallocated fund balances related to non-general fund funds. That gives us the expenditure authority to use that if we need to in fiscal year 25. If we look at some of our CIP carryovers in a little bit more detail, many of these projects should look familiar to you as we discussed a lot of these in our work session in April. Worth noting, several of these projects are strategic plan related items, including our Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility expansion, our Goodyear Water Reclamation Facility expansion, and our Camelback Road project. As a point of clarification I make each year with council, I want to make sure we understand that for carryovers, just because we are shifting dollars between fiscal years, this does not impact the schedules or the day-to-day operations of the project managers themselves. This is purely a budgetary exercise and administrative in nature. If we look at our non-CIP carryovers, last year these were about $11 million. You can see they're substantially higher this year, but that's because this includes amounts that previously would have been included in our CIP carryover group, but because we changed the definition of what CIP is by increasing the threshold from $100,000 to $500,000, and excludes vehicles and reimbursements, those now show in the non-CIP bucket. Were we to do an apples-to-apples comparison, our non-CIP carryovers would be coming in at about 9.5 million compared to 11 million, which is actually about a 10% decrease versus what we carried over last year. And if we were to look at the CIP, apples to apples, it would be about a 14% increase from what we carried over last year. If we were to look at our contingencies, I've highlighted in bold the tentative column for any contingencies that changed from the work session back in April. Our general fund policy reserve, this is finance policy driven, 15% of ongoing revenues get set aside. Because we did not touch revenues between our work session and our tentative budget, those numbers have not changed. Our CIP reserve, as we talk about again in our work session, that money is needed for future 5 years of our 5-year CIP forecast, or 5-year CIP, 5-year funded, fully funded CIP. Let me get my words straight. And then on the contingency side of things, that 33 million, we talked about that previously in the presentation. That's plugging that fund balance for expenditure authority in future years. And then we have our budget authority account, which also by finance policy is set at $15 million. So Mayor and Council, before you is Resolution 2024-2379, which adopts the 2025 expenditure limitation budget at $818,096,600 and sets the dates of public hearings both on the final budget as well as truth and taxation. Tonight, you're being asked to adopt this resolution authorizing us to complete all the required publications. On June 10th, we'll have the public hearing and at a special meeting adopt the budget. And then a few weeks after that, on June 24th, we'll come back for the property levy adoption. Are there any questions?
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? And just for the audience, tentative budget is the top threshold, cannot go above that.
Correct.
All right. All right, City Clerk, please read resolution number 2024-2379 by title only.
Adopt resolution number 2024-2379, adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 estimates of revenues and expenses for the City of Goodyear, including estimated property tax levy and property tax rates as the tentative budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, setting forth the receipts and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adoption of budget, and setting the tax levies.
Council, please enter a motion and a second to approve the resolution 2024-2379. I see a motion and a second. Open for discussion. First up, Councilmember Hampton.
Yeah, just really making a point to the public who are watching that we've been going through this process for quite a while now. So we've been looking through and questioning and asking, making sure we got this dialed into. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate the changes that we talked about during the work sessions. So thank you for that. And then just having people understand the process, the transparency and the public process. So yeah, I'm good with it. So thank you.
Councilmember Stipp.
I hesitated at starting this with a, well, this is my last tentative budget, but, because, you know, the farewell tour continues. But it is. You know, we have spent a lot of time on this, probably the most amount of time we've spent in the last 3 or 4 years on this particular budget. So I'm grateful for your staff, yourself, everybody who's been involved. For taking this time. You know, we are in a situation, and I tend to always be the voice of negativity when it comes to the budget as we go through kind of bringing things forward. And I've heard a couple of us say privately as we're walking out in the parking lot, you know, we're doing this to ourselves, or we're creating this situation going forward, and we have to be cognizant, I think, of that moving as we do this and other future budgets. We have made an adjustment for what we would anticipate to be future ballpark expenditures, we've started a set aside for that for the next few years, which is something that I raised during the work session. Just to make sure that we did not have any surprises here in 5 years when these contracts come up. I think we're still going to have a surprise, but we're going to be at least financially prepared for them as we go forward. And I think that just sings to our financial conservative nature as we move forward. When this, I got to be honest, when this budget first landed, I thought, well, great, I'm going to have to vote no on my last budget too. But I think we've made some real good headway moving forward, again, with folks listening and kind of paying attention. I hope that my comments over the years, and particularly this year, have just given everyone pause to move forward and how we're moving this city forward without kind of breaking the bank. As they say, it's easy to spend other people's money. And I think we have historically done a really good job of making sure that we're spending that money very wisely. So despite, I'm sure by the end of the year, someone will remind me how many times I voted no and how many times I voted yes, but I think the no number exceeds the yes number. I still have been incredibly proud of our community and of the councils in the past, this current council, and what has come to be. So my final two questions then as we roll forward. I challenged on the CIP projects, the numbers that we're using that are in there. Have they been adjusted for this potential inflation, or are we gonna, and there is a budgeting philosophy that I agree with, that we don't want to sink a project that we're going to do in 3 years based on today's uncertainty. How confident are we with those numbers that we have regarding the CIP?
So, thank you, Councilmember Stipp. So, Steve did hit on some of the uniqueness around this project. I don't think he actually mentioned this, but, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's actually a couple-month break between when the project starts and they have to demobilize and remobilize again after the fact. I think that drove the fact that we only had 2 bidders on the project, and we don't have a straight answer, but I think it may have impacted the number that we got back more so than anybody really knows for sure. So that project specifically with ADOT's moratoriums, our moratoriums on when we can or can't close the road or the entrance or exit to the freeway, I think played into that. So our CIP team has specifically created an emphasis on looking at specifically projects that are being funded in the upcoming year and the existing projects to try to avoid situations like this. So while we can't guarantee there won't be other ones pop up, we would like to think this is more of a one-off than the rule that you'll see going forward.
I think that's a really good point. Anytime we do any construction anywhere near I-10, we end up with, I'm going to say not one curveball, but several that just seem to come through. So that's good. So I appreciate that. And I know the mayor and myself, when we first started on council, and we were really hot on it for a few years, and then things cooled and whatnot. And you mentioned it tonight, which kind of begs the question again. Is it time for us to look at the fire department and police department overtime budgets and do an analysis on that? Have you in the budget division looked at that? Those costs are now hidden from us. They were very transparent earlier because they're more or less base budget. Is it time for us to get at least one more final before the end of the year, kind of a breakdown of that?
I would say that we are very cognizant of what's going on from an overtime standpoint. Right now, fire's overtime budget, their ongoing amount is around $2.4 million in '25. That's what we plan on adopting. PD's is around $2 million, and that includes all of the MOU adjustments that were made last year going into the second year of that. So next year will be an MOU negotiation year again, and we will keep an eye on how. Sometimes, as you probably know, Councilmember Stipp, just because it's said on one paper doesn't mean that's actually how the numbers end up at the end of the day. So we are keeping a close eye on it. I will defer to council as to whether you believe that that's necessary to have additional information on, but just know that the budget and finance team are working very closely with public safety to monitor that.
Well, yeah, there's always that question, and it's very philosophical about when is it better to pay overtime versus better to hire folks, and I don't think that's a conversation that I need to be involved in, quite, at least not yet, but no, I think we have, I think if there's the proper scrutiny on it from the management perspective, there isn't need for it from the council perspective. But it also isn't a blank check, and I think we have to be very, very careful of that kind of going forward, that are there management practices in place that allow for, that are creating the overtime situation. So perhaps it's something that the audit committee may want to look at going forward, and I hope somebody makes a note on that, that may be something to consider. Just make it very kind of cursory. We're always looking for opportunities to kind of look at things and just see if there's are there management controls? Is there something that is happening, rather than making it a full-blown report for council? Because $4.5 million it's a lot of money. And we just want to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. So again, I just thank you, the team, thank Jared, everybody for really working very hard this year on, some would argue is probably a difficult budget, but I think when you've got less money, it's probably the easier budget to work on. So thank you for that, and thanks for letting me make these comments.
Councilmember Loretano?
First of all, well said, Councilmember Stipp.
Well, it's 2 in a row.
No, don't say anything else because I might go bad. I want to thank you. I want to thank the team. I want to thank the city manager, all of her team, everyone, and everyone on this council for working really hard to get this budget through. We are looking at a legislature that continues to cut our revenue streams, and every little bit they can cut. As we all know, the mayor did his darndest to try to save our rental tax, and it got cut, so we don't have those ongoing funds. So I think this is a very conservative budget. It meets the needs. Just so people know, there's several CIP projects in there that are going to benefit our community. The Estrella Bridge, which is a safety issue. We talked about it earlier, the Pebble Creek, Estrella under I-10. Again, that is just a horrific road to drive on, and I'm glad that it takes time to fix it, but we will get that fixed. We're working with the traffic light to try to get those synchronized and continue to work on that. It's not it's never going to be perfect, but I think there's really the funding here is to do that. We're working with public safety to be on the cutting edge to protect our citizens with the police department and with the fire department, and to protect our firefighters. There's a lot of good in this budget. Do I agree with every line item? Probably not, but I think I look at the whole, it's very holistic for our city. We have arts and culture events that our citizens love, and we keep those going for our citizens. So when we balance everything as total, I think kudos to the entire staff for putting this budget together for the benefit of our city. So I am for it, so thank you.
And Councilmember Loretano, can I make one additional comment? It just spurred in my memory. I've wanted to mention that we have a supplemental for license plate reader cameras. I forgot it in my presentation, but I want to make sure it's mentioned. That was being funded by general fund money, and per conversations, we're going to utilize RICO funding to purchase the one-time portion of that. It's not a change in funding source, it's all general fund money, but think of it more as just earmarking those funds for next year for that purpose. And just wanted to make sure that was out there and communicated.
Thank you.
When I first got on in 2009, what I'm really proud about is our fiscal conservatism. One-time money for one-time expenditures, ongoing for ongoing. We have reserves for taking care of depreciation. We got reserve funds for emergencies. But again, just to piggyback on what Councilmember Loretano, we get challenged every year at our state legislature, and the rental tax is about $5 million to us right now. Could grow to maybe 15 in several years ahead, as more apartments get built, unfortunately for some. And as a result of that, we've got some major challenges next fiscal year because unfortunately we had to use some one-time money to cover some of the very popular programs that we have right now that we're going to have to figure out how to move that over to ongoing. Wouldn't maybe have that issue if our legislature would leave us alone, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to happen. So I'm very proud of what you've done to put some of this together. And again, I think our fiscal conservative policies help us make it through. I know there are some cities that are having bigger challenges in this area as a result of the dollar amounts that they were hit. If I recall right, it was 74 cities that got hit with $234 million, which is a lot of money as opposed to our 5. So I appreciate all the work you got, but I know you got a bigger job ahead of you trying to get that back in line. So with that, we've had the discussion, we've had the first. Can you go ahead and open the voting, please? Passes 7-0. Thank you. You're back up again. Item authorized expenditure in the excess of $500,000 for fiscal year 2025. What do we got?
Yeah, so I don't have an official presentation for this particular item, but per Resolution 08-0255, all expenditures and budgeted funds in excess of $500,000 must obtain council approval. So what is being asked of you tonight is to authorize all known routine, the key word here being routine, budgeted expenditures in excess of $500,000 for fiscal year 2025. Authorizing these expenditures now keeps the city from having to piecemeal these to council at various meetings throughout the year. And routine expenditures, for example, are made up of items such as utilities, fuel, insurance, custodial services, and various other items literally that keep the city's lights on and keep us running throughout the year.
With that, let's see, can we get a motion and a second to authorize the 2025 listed expenditures of $500,000 or more? I see a motion and a second, open for discussion. I see Councilmember Gillis.
Ryan, I just want to give you a kudos because it's obvious that everybody we've talked about has done a great job with this budget. But from the first day that I was elected and came in to talk to everybody from things that were going on in the very beginning with different things in the city, that budget, everything, you've done a great job. You've come on and replaced a couple of people, and you have picked up and you've taken off with it, and you have done a really, really good job, and I want to point you out. Thank you for that, because you've made it so I understand it. That's a big deal with the finance. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let's see, we've got no further discussion listed up there. Can we open it up for vote? Passes 7-0. Does the council have any comments, commendations, or reports on current events that they'd like to mention? Okay, seeing none, does the city manager have it? Oh, you got some? Oh.
I pushed the button.
I pushed the button too.
All right, Councilmember Stipp.
I have a question for the manager or the attorney or somebody. We are in the, I just saw them today, they started, campaign signs are going up. Every year, this turns into a gigantic controversy for us about who's policing them, who's responsible for it. Can somebody just kind of give us an overview of who's responsible for policing where they are, what's going on, if they're in a bad spot, who's to take them down, I think it's important for us to get that out. Can somebody answer that?
What I do want to say is Darcy McCracken, our I almost said city council member. Sorry, city clerk.
Demotion.
She is the individual that if there are concerns about placement of signs or questions about them or complaints or anything like that, she's our central go-to person. So she's the one to call and ask. She can respond to your questions, and if she doesn't have the answer, obviously she'll check with the city attorney's office to make sure that we give it to you the correct answer. I'm going to turn it over to my phone-a-friend, city attorney, for the rest of that answer.
And just a reminder that the state statute prohibits the city from touching or removing signs. We get complaints about improperly located signs frequently. If they're located in the city right away, we cannot remove those signs. With the exception if they're unsafe or blocking views, then we can ask the candidate or the campaign to remove that sign. After we've given notice, if that sign is not removed and it's an unsafe condition, only at that point can we can take that sign down and tell the campaign that we have their sign. That is city property. That doesn't apply to property for other governmental agencies in their right-of-way or their governmentally owned properties. That's their responsibility for regulating that property. We only regulate the city right-of-ways and city-owned properties.
Great. So we'll notify the candidate if their sign is improperly placed.
Correct.
For them to remove. Okay, great. Thanks for answering my question.
Councilmember Loretano?
I just have a question, and I think this is more for the police. Up in Estrella, we had a problem, gunfire again, a lot of gunfire, especially on the weekends. It's out kind of in the desert. And it sounded like about a week or so ago, it sounded almost like automatic gunfire. And I guess that the concern, and we saw some officers go out to the desert looking, but I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you solve it. But my concern is people are out there hiking with their dogs, and people are just randomly out shooting. So I'm not sure how we fix that. But just to keep it on your, I don't know.
Do you want to respond to that?
So it is illegal to be shooting out there, and so we'll respond to those as those calls come in. It's difficult to be proactive in the river bottom or those areas with the vehicles, but I will make a note to our officers, and we'll try to get some more visibility down in there.
Yeah, it's usually like Saturday and Sunday mornings, like at 6, 7 a.m. You can hear them out there.
Oh.
Okay.
So I just don't want somebody walking with their dog down there and
Absolutely.
get in the wrong place. So thank you.
Councilmember Gillis?
Okay, so getting back to the signs, because we had a conversation today, so I'm glad somebody else brought it up, because it's become a problem again starting already. So we are going to deal with it. So we give how much notice to people as far as Rorick with the signs, how much notice, and then when do we follow up instead of just kicking the can down the road?
The state statute states that if a sign's placed in city right-of-way in an unsafe condition or blocking the view, if it's an immediate hazard, we can take action and immediately remove the sign, notify the campaign that we have their sign. If it's just in a unsafe condition, then we have to at least give 24 hours notice. We typically give a little bit more than that to make sure that the campaign or the candidate has a reasonable amount of time to relocate their signs if it's creating a hazard.
And then we are going to take them down.
After we make reasonable
Yes.
opportunities for the
What is
candidate.
reasonable? That's what I'm asking.
At least 24 hours. We typically give more time than that on city-owned right-of-way if it truly creates a hazard.
Okay, and so anything that has to do with ADOT, which we were discussing today, if it has to do with ADOT, then we let them know, or how does that work? Can we help? Because I feel sorry for the candidates having to deal with this, because there are some candidates that seem to think they can just go above and beyond, and they should not be allowed to do that. What's good for one should be good for another. So how do we deal with that?
ADOT controls their property. I believe the intent is that we will pass along concerns to ADOT. Certainly, a citizen or other person who has concerns can contact ADOT
Can
directly.
contact them, and what if ADOT does not do anything about it? Because we have candidates sitting here today,
ADOT controls their property.
so there's nothing we can do about that.
We do not control ADOT property.
As the city, we can't help in any way.
We can let ADOT know.
We can let them know.
We cannot.
And that has to do with Darcy's office?
She will pass the message along to ADOT.
Okay, that's what I want to know. All right, did you hear that? Yeah. All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Okay, about signs. I know that we implemented a prohibition in our GSQ district area, but if they're placed there and they're not deemed as hazardous or unsafe, do we have any recourse to enforce our own policy?
We have a adopted resolution designating a sign-free area. Yes, we will control that area.
So we can enforce that because we've adopted that.
We will take actions to enforce our ordinance. I'm going to probably call a timeout on signs at this point. If we want to have further conversations, let's put it on an agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Anything else? City Manager?
I do have a few things, so I beg your pardon here. I do want to acknowledge Human Resources wins the Industrial Commission of Arizona Chairman's Award on May 13th. The Industrial Commission of Arizona hosted their annual ICA Recognition Day to honor private and public sector employers who excel in safety and well-being. The Chairman's Award is a huge recognition for our team, and it is the highest recognition bestowed by ICA. It is concerning, it's a support of other municipalities and private employers with a focus on enhancing workplace safety. So I do want to say congratulations to our teams in Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Water Services who continue to advance our status through their commitment to creating safer work environments. So thank you very much. I also want to recognize Water Services Director Barbara Chappell, who was honored with the Water Environment Federation 2024 Hatfield Award for her leadership, integrity, vision, and encouragement of her large operations team to be involved and passionate about their careers. And I'm not done, Mayor and Council, because the Water Services Wastewater Collection Division was also recognized in the AZ Water Safety Award for its exceptional safety and wellness. So thank you to them. And last but not least, our Fleet Division continues to knock it out of the park, again for the 4th year in a row as one of the top 50 leading fleets out of America's 38,000 government fleet programs. For a 2nd year in a row, we were also listed in the top 20 fleets nationally. The award program recognizes operations that are performing at a high level, particularly in fleet leadership, competitiveness, efficiency, planning, and overcoming challenges. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. Next meeting will be June 3rd, 2024. With that, a vote may be held to call an executive session for the following. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3, 4, and 7, discussion and consultation for legal advice with the city attorneys for discussion or consultation with the attorney of the public body in order to consider its position and instruct its attorney regarding the public body's position regarding contracts that are the subject of negotiation, and for discussions or consultation with designated representatives of the public body in order to consider its position and instruct the representatives regarding negotiations for the purpose, sale, or lease of real property involving the former city hall. I would like a motion and a second to go in executive session. I see a motion and a second. Can we open it up for a vote? Passes 7-0. I guess we go back over to the same place there, right? Okay.